We've got the next session is on sustainable enterprise. So can I ask the colleagues who are speaking at that event, at that session, to start making their way towards the stage now? And I think I can see, there we are, yeah. So how this is going to work, this next session, each of the speakers have actually had a film made. If you want to please grab a seat. So this session, we have 3 speakers. We have Jemma MacVicar, Executive Manager of the Galson Estate Trust. We have Sarah Morrison from Boshan CIC. And then we have Melinda from Hebridean Charcuterie. And each of these organisations have really embedded sustainability and tackling climate change into everything that they do. And, they each have a sort of unique perspective on this. But these films will introduce some of the actions that they've been taking. And then how it will work is we'll have a Q&A after these films have been shown. So I think I'll hand over to the technical people who will start presenting the films now.
The Galson Estate Trust is a community-owned land trust. We're responsible for managing the 56,000 acre estate that covers the northwest of Lewis. We're here to sustainably manage the estate to make sure that it's kept for future generations. By being part of the Hebridean Climate Hub, it gives us access to information, networks. We don't have all the answers to what are the right things to do to combat climate change, particularly for our area. So it's really valuable to have a network that we can pull on for information, to share ideas, but also coming together to deliver on projects such as what we're doing today. The opportunity to take part in the greenhouse gas audit, one, the fact it was fully funded, there was no cost to the estate, ultimately allows it to happen. But also we didn't have a baseline or know what we were working from. So if we were going to put any measures to try and improve our emissions level, we wanted to know where we were starting off so that we'd be able to measure the progress that was being made.
That moves so silently.
It's just like you expect to get that bit.
Vroom.
There's a lot of travel for work, but we also have people commuting back and forth to the office as well. So our main emission was the transport. Our community are also home to a lot of people who commute to and from Stornoway for work. So we also knew that that emission would be happening within the community, as well as within our own staff. So it's been great to have the roadshow to firstly today spend with the staff to try and encourage them to make the transition to EVs, to show all the different options that are available, and then the roadshow going out to the wider community will hopefully dispel some myths regarding electric vehicles and see what options are available.
Gas emissions come from transport, and of that 26%, 92% of that comes from road-based travel.
I think a lot of the information that you maybe find quite readily online or from national sources will be designed around a more urban demographic. So when we're talking about access to charging points or even access to garages that can service EVs is a very different picture on an island as it is to the mainland. So holding these sessions in rural communities and it being tailored towards that demographic and relating to the local context is really valuable to make sure people are well informed and know what they're committing to. It's important to come to people where they are, come to them in their home communities, and they don't need to travel far to get the information, but really getting the information from a local source that's trusted, that understands the area, understands the challenges of island living, and having the information adapted to take all that into consideration is really important. So these outreach events will hopefully make people feel well informed. So we first completed the greenhouse gas emissions audit, and that was only looking at the activities directly associated with the operations of the trust and its employees. We were then supported by Carbon Neutral Islands to deliver a community climate action plan which looked at transport of the whole community and home energy. Out of that action plan, we held focus groups and surveyed the community to find out what were their needs regarding transport and home energy, what challenges were they facing, and then also engage with professionals to come up with some potential action points and solutions. So when looking at transport, the usage of electric vehicles is really quite low on the estate area. So it was one of the actions where, well, how could we better inform the community and make EVs more accessible? I think for myself, the range that they can cover, I maybe thought that after every trip that it would need to be charged, and that there would be quite a lot of time spent on charging, and that doesn't seem to be the case. And from getting to try and test drive a car, it isn't any different to driving a regular car once you get into the way of it. And also the range and size of vehicles, you can get a good family car. It doesn't just have to be a small vehicle. So yeah, eyes have been open today. As a community land trust, we always have to be mindful that we are here to steward the land for the future generations. The trust will always be here, but it will be in different hands as it moves down the generations. So it's really important to us that everything that we do now is handing the estate over in at least the condition it is now, but if not better. So in partnership with our neighbouring communities in the Carloway Estate and Barvis Estate, we're working towards a community-owned wind farm which would generate power and sustain the three estates. We're also developing 2 housing projects, and it's really important to us that they are sustainable, that they're economic for people to heat, and as climate friendly as they possibly can be.
Very successful. EV, this is a big one. Well, EVs are not reliable at all.
This is the first action point on our climate action plan. There are many more action points that we need to cover relating to transport and home energy, and then looking to areas that we've looked at the moment. So we need to look at climate impact throughout all areas of the estate. So I'm sure there's going to be many more options for collaboration in the future. Take a step. I think for quite a long time we were maybe hesitant and we didn't know what the right action was to take, and so you take a lot of time trying to assess the choices, but take a step, and even if it's a small one, you're still making a difference, and you can only grow on that.
Brilliant. And I think we'll just go straight to the next film, in fact, please. And then we'll go through the films.
I am Melinda.
Oh. We'll go through the films, and then I'll come and join you over there, and we'll have a chat with the public.
Whitington, and with my husband Brian, we own and run Hebridean Charcuterie, which makes cured and fermented meat products. We started Hebridean Charcuterie during COVID. We converted this garage, or this building, it was previously a garage, it's now our production kitchen. So charcuterie is a French word, and it means fermented and cured meats like salami. And the islands produce some fantastic products, and they also produce some world-class meats, and we were inspired to make some fantastic charcuterie. Basically what we do is we take fresh meat. We currently use venison, goose, pork and mutton, and we put it through a process, salt and air dry it, and then at the end of that process, and these products don't need refrigeration, they last for months. And it's something that is pertinent to the islands because very much families would have done that here in the past with things like mutton and herring. They would have salted and air dried it, and that would be kept for use during the winter. So we source our meats, we use wild venison and wild goose, and that comes from local land estates. We also use mutton and pork in our products currently, and we get in our mutton and pork from either crofters or the local butchers. So in regards to that, there's less emissions produced from transporting those animals to the abattoir. It's a local abattoir that we use where possible. And we are also really concerned about animal welfare as well. So it makes sense to us that these animals are only getting transported a very short distance to the abattoir when they're going there. So being a food producer, we're mindful of the ingredients that we use, and it's very much craft-to-table thinking in regards to how we source our meats. As well as that, in regards to production of those, or the processing of those meats, we use very ultra-efficient machines, and these really cut down on our energy consumption. We also have an electric car. So I use that for going for supplies, taking deliveries to my stockists, and also to go to events, whether it be in the islands or on the mainland. So by thinking in a greener way, we have gained some practical benefit for our business. As we have grown our business and grown our trade, we've continually tried to think of ways of maximising the capacity of our machines to make sure that we are basically getting more product for the energy consumption that we use, and that's becoming ever more slicker as time goes by. And we're also thinking about supply chain. So at the moment, the majority of the goose that we take in comes from stores used in South Hughes, and so that covers for geese. But we're also looking to attract crofters in Lewis to shoot geese, so that we can get more of our supply of geese from this end of the island chain as well. So again, that means less emissions for transportation of ingredients. So the challenge is we would really like to become even more energy efficient, and we'd love to get solar panels installed in this building that's got a nice roof for that to happen. It catches all that southern sun that we get during the day, and that would help reduce our carbon footprint in here, maybe even to the point that we get all of our energy from that, at least during the summer. Love to do that. The thing that is a challenge about that is the upfront cost of it. We don't have the current capabilities to do that. It would be great if there was a mechanism, for instance, where if there was a loan system in place where businesses could get help with upfront costs for such a product, and then perhaps we could pay that back with the energy savings that we make in electricity. Our customers are really interested in the story behind food. They're interested about the inspiration, about why we started the business. They're interested in even the packaging that we use. So because we're an island business, we don't use any plastic in our packaging. We don't want to see plastic washing up in our shorelines. So we use cardboard for our outer sleeves. In our packaging, we use a non-plastic product that is organic, so it will naturally break down in the environment, and customers are really impressed by that. We show and tell by example, and we've passed on our knowledge to other businesses about what works for us. And I think when more businesses connect and share knowledge, then it really has the capacity to perhaps reduce costs and also decrease environmental impact. I think people are nervous that acting in a greener way is going to cost them money. And what I would say to folks is making a greener choice doesn't necessarily have to be that. You can save on business costs and be greener. So as a child of the 70s, I am one of those people who feels that they needed a hard copy in every piece of administration that I do. And to come away from that, I'm trying at the moment to just store files digitally rather than print off every single piece of information that I need. So storing things digitally means that you're saving on paper and ink and a little bit of electricity on your printer. So these small things, even though they're small, can make a difference. So the hub means that we can connect with more businesses, we can share knowledge, we can share ideas, maybe we can even inspire each other. And the hub also offers grants. So one of the things that I'm thinking of at the moment is applying for a grant to access some extra training so that I can become better able to reduce any meat wastage that we use in products.
Thank you, Melinda. I think we'll go on to Sarah's film, and then I'll come and join you. And can I ask Angus, please, if you can find Sarah, and when I go and sit down there are 2 microphones on the table here. If perhaps you and Sarah can be the roving microphones for the audience, that would be extremely helpful. And okay, so Sarah Morrison from Boshan's film, please.
I'm Sarah Morrison. I'm director of Boshan CIC and the general runner of Hebridean at the moment because it's just me. Boshan is a community interest company set up to tackle the issue of plastic waste and toy consumption on the island. Originally, it started out looking at just recycling broken toys, but kind of developed as we were getting stuff that was too big to recycle. So we now have a second-hand toy shop and a workshop where we're going to be recycling broken toys into hopefully furniture. We have our shop where we're showing folk that second-hand doesn't need to mean second best. So all the toys that reach the shop floor have been fully checked and tested and cleaned. So they're getting something that they can play with straight away. The kids love coming in and touching things instead of it being in boxes, so it's really engaging for them. We've also done some talks with schools and youth groups, showing them our Plastel machine, which identifies plastic. And it's been really good seeing how engaged the young folk are in the issue of recycling and plastic waste. The community support has been absolutely incredible, from the donations that we've been receiving to the folk coming in who wouldn't normally shop secondhand, who are now coming in to buy stuff, from grannies and grandpas to mums and dads. Everybody who comes in remarks on how lovely everything is and how new it is, which is fantastic, and how clean things are and how reasonable the cost is of everything, because we don't want things to be too expensive for folk, which helps alleviate child poverty on the island, where kids can have access to things that they might not otherwise be able to. We've been a member of the Climate Hub for a couple of years now, and we're lucky enough to receive the Ideas into Action Fund, February 2024, which enabled us to buy a Plastel machine. The Plastel machine identifies a plastic type in under a second. There's no legislation for companies to put a plastic type on any kind of plastic, let alone components of toys. So this has greatly increased our productivity and our ability to recycle efficiently. We've also had help with funding applications, and we've also attended great networking events through Climate Hebridean, which has enabled us to meet groups and organisations throughout the islands who all have the same aims and goals as ourselves. By setting up a reuse and recycle company, we're reducing the amount of things that are going to landfill, especially on an island where you have a limited landfill capacity, or you're having to pay the cost of shipping things elsewhere for other people to deal with. By doing it here ourselves, it means that there's less going to landfill, there's more being reused. It's helping to meet net zero targets. We currently have over a ton of plastic waiting to be recycled, and have rehomed thousands of toys and books. The idea for Boshan came to me about 4 years ago. And the main struggle that I faced was finding premises in town or around the town area that were suitable, affordable, especially for a startup. Luckily, we managed to secure this building last year, and we opened in November. And since then, things have been absolutely amazing. Also struggle because I am just doing it by myself at the moment, and the volume is a lot more than I was expecting. But we have somebody starting with us very shortly, so we'll be able to get more stuff ready and out on the shelves free and get on with our recycling goals. I've always had an interest in reuse and recycling. Since I think it was probably from watching Blue Peter when I was younger. I remember collecting aluminium cans to squash them and send them off to them for their annual fundraising, because back in the 90s we didn't have curbside recycling. So it's always been an interest to me. I've always shopped secondhand. So I think because it's so ingrained in my life, it's kind of become my job. A piece of advice I'd offer anybody who's looking to tackle waste is to persevere. I could have given up many times over the last 4 years, but I didn't. And now that we're up and running, it's showing me that it was really good not to, because the comments from the public when they come in are just incredible. And yeah, it's a really good feeling to be saving all these things from ending up in landfill. We have somebody starting with us part-time shortly, which will enable me to start tackling the recycling side of things, because I've been so busy in the shop that I haven't had the chance to go and work our new shredding machine. I'd also like to expand and employ more people. Maybe look at clothes if we ever get the chance, because that's something that people have been speaking to us about as well. But yeah, just making more people aware of who we are, where we are, and what we do, so that we get more folk shopping secondhand rather than buying brand new.
Oh, a big round of applause for all those lovely folks. So I'm going to come and join you over here. Okay, trust me to grab the one that doesn't work. Can everyone hear me? Okay. Right, so there's a salutary lesson. When you get handed a mic, okay, thank you. As long as there are people who can do the roving mics, so I'm assuming that, yeah, okay. So when you get a microphone, please hold off talking until you get the microphone, and then put the microphone as close to you as you can, rather than doing that, because if you do that, no one will hear you. So, and also our colleagues who are based around the islands who are watching this on the live stream, and indeed from around Scotland, won't be able to hear you. So please try and do that. Okay, I'm going to endeavour to hold the microphone, move, and try and read at the same time. And being a boy, I'm going to find that difficult, but I'll do my best. So Jemma, you're the executive manager of the Galson Estate Trust, Community Land Trust. And for those of you who know some of my history, my first job in the islands was at the Galson Estate Trust, along with Tyne and Shigal. And so I'm thrilled that Galson Estate and Jemma, you're here on the panel today. And you have obviously the responsibility for the strategic objectives of the Galson Estate, and one of which is, of course, climate action. You mentioned in your presentation there that you have a climate action plan. I wonder if perhaps you could just tell us a little bit more about that, please.
Yes.
One of our strategic priorities is crofting and land use, and a secondary is exceptional place. So combining the two of those together does bring a focus on climate action, and also making sure that people have access to homes that are easy to heat and comfortable to live in, to ultimately eradicate fuel poverty would be the aim. And also ensuring that they can get to where they need to sustainably as well. So our climate action plan looks at home energy. So how can we ensure that people are in comfortable homes that are affordable and easy to heat? The majority of the properties in our area are more traditional croft houses, which can be quite difficult to adapt. And they're also in private ownership as well, and so there are different schemes and funding options that can help landlords and rented properties, but there isn't the same accessibility for people who own their own homes. So working with different partners such as Taoiseach Gal, Citizens Advice Bureau, Home Energy Scotland, Warmworks, it's trying to find out what is available and how can we inform people and make sure that they have that information to hand. And then from that, build on the bigger actions and adaptations as well. And then on transport, we would like to transition to EVs, both for personal use, but also for community use. But also looking at the wider infrastructure as well and what's needed in terms of charging points and information to people to make sure that they are informed when they're making the decision to transition. So the EV roadshow has been great in giving that information and giving people a chance to test it as well, because we don't have the garages that you have in the city where you can just rock up for a test drive of a vehicle as well, and I think that can put some people off too. So that roadshow has been great.
Well, I'm grateful, Jemma, and I'm glad that we've been able to help with that EV Roadshow, and that the Hub has had a good role to play in supporting you. And of course, we funded the original greenhouse gas audit, and I think that said that the one thing that the estate could do was encourage the switch to electric vehicles amongst the community. So it's lovely to have that tie-in between the different needs. Does anyone have a question for Jemma to kick the ball off? Or shall I carry on? You're all feeling a bit shy at the moment. I'll come back to you in a second then, so you can indulge me. Sarah, you run Boshan CIC. I thought that film was terrific, and it showed all the different work that you do, which is hugely impressive. And I'm thrilled also that we were able to support the piece of machinery that you needed to be able to check that plastic. I'll come back to that in a second. And I love the fact that I'm reading your biography here, and if you'll indulge me, I'll just read some of it. And Sarah Morrison, director of Boshan CIC, which creates a fully circular life for toys on the Isle of Lewis. I love that. A fully circular life for toys. You know, you can see them prancing along the street, can't you, ready for the next stage in their life. And it's fantastic that that's your ethos, right there from the beginning. Fully circular life for toys on the Isle of Lewis. Based in the shop and workshop in Stornoway, Boshan accepts donations of toys, games, books and baby items. All items are fully cleaned, checked over, tested and fixed where possible. Those that can be sold are done so, and in Boshan's pre-loved shop at very affordable prices, helping to alleviate child poverty. I mean, that's a really important issue. Perhaps you could expand on just that point there.
I think that's kind of actually come about by accident, but has been really fantastic. Initially, I was just looking at recycling broken toys. Through previous work, I knew how much was ending up in landfill, and knew that there was a way locally of being able to deal with this on a kind of small industrial scale, because you can't put it into your blue bin, it's not recyclable on the curbside. But getting toys that were too good to recycle, which didn't make any sense to to be wasting energy and time on doing something with them. So that's how the second-hand toy shops come about. And I think you saw like a bit of the volume that we've got there at the moment is not what I was expecting. I wasn't expecting quite so much. So to be able to provide these things at a reasonable price for kids and families who wouldn't otherwise be able to afford to go and buy them from anywhere else, especially things like grannies and grandpas, but even baby equipment for young families at a fraction of the cost that they buy new and that kids don't use for that long. It's been really, really good to see and to see people supporting it in that way.
I mean, I think that's a really important point about the fact that A, things are expensive in the first place, but also B, we tend to throw things away quite quickly or not use them for a sufficient length of time. And I think what you're doing there is sort of stopping that effectively and being able to say, well, hold on a second, these things are perfectly serviceable, let's use them, and where they can't be serviceable, at that point then they can be recycled.
Yeah, I think I got overexcited last week. We had a kind of deluge of jumperoos arriving in the shop, and anybody who knows what a jumperoo is, they are a very big piece of baby equipment, quite cumbersome and take up a lot of space. And 2 that came in were broken in the same part, but broken in different ways. So I was able to take the 2 pieces, fix up one, and make a whole working jumperoo out of it. And I just got far too excited that instead of both of these ending up going to the tip because they weren't working, that actually I've now got a fully functional one that I've sold already. I sold it the day I put it online, and now have spare parts for another one that might come in that will need fixing. And it's just, yeah, it's such a good feeling.
Sarah, do you know, when I hear stories like this, I just want to carry you around on a chair, because you should be. You know, we should be throwing rose petals in front of you everywhere you go. Well done, that's terrific. Melinda, and have we met before? I think so. And I was...
Hi, honey, nice to see you again.
I was really interested in the part where you talked about being able to potentially generate your own energy and how that might help reduce your own running costs, but also some emissions. I think you mentioned specifically about the summer. What do you hope to get out of any solar system?
Well, the roof line that we have on our kitchen is particularly good for catching the solar gain that comes in. I have a garden. On that side of the garden, the plants go mental because they're capturing all that summer sunshine, and it just seems like common sense to try and install something like that on the roof to at least help reduce the energy consumption in our production, and maybe even with the hope that during the whole of the summer, that would maybe bring down our energy costs for production to near zero in the kitchen. And if it could do that, brilliant. I mean, obviously that would be a saving on our costs. But, you know, it would also be great for our carbon footprint. And we're quite mindful in the business about bringing down our carbon footprint as much as we possibly can. And yeah, that would be the next step for us. It's really an ambition for us to achieve that at some point, hopefully soon.
Thank you. I mean, I'm reading through the biography here about where you use ultra energy efficient appliances. You use an electric car for collecting supplies and deliveries. You don't use plastic in your packaging. So, Sarah, that means you don't have to come along and recycle it afterwards. And that you hope to install the solar panels in the future. And why do you use ultra energy efficient appliances? Why do you use no plastic in your packaging? Why?
Well, the no plastic in our packaging really comes from the fact that we're an island business. We don't want to see plastic wastage on our shores. I know loads of people in the communities here do beach cleans and they, pick up a load of plastic and all sorts from our shoreline, and we don't want to contribute that in any way, like plastic bags and things like that. So we've specifically looked at packaging where it's cardboard, so it can be recycled, or the sleeves that we use on the inside is actually made from organic material, so it can be just put in the bin, and it will break down into its organic material parts over the course of time. It's actually quite a short amount of time once it's exposed to the elements. So we're mindful of that. And in regards to the ultra energy machines, it says on our costs, which is it's an important for a small business. But yeah, we want to reduce our carbon footprint, and I think I mentioned in the film as well, as we've got better at our production, we've only got a small space in our kitchen, so coordinating the production is it's a skill that we've had to learn over time. But as we go along and we maximise capacity of our machines, and also as we get more trade for our business, and we know if we continually are in production, we know that sells, then we can optimise the amount of product that we get for the energy that we're taking in to fuel those machines. And again, it's just more efficient, and there'll be long-term savings in our costs and long-term savings in our carbon footprint.
Well, thank you. That's a terrific answer. Do we have any questions for the panel? We have one at the back there, gentleman at the back, unruly sort, probably works for Home Energy Scotland or something like that. And my dear friend Donald Morrison, who actually supplies sheep to Melinda's charcuterie business.
Thank you, Brian. A question for Jemma. Could you possibly expand a bit on the opportunity that your project has given to offer employment locally, and thinking especially about Catherine's role and what she carries out for you?
Thank you. Yes, we through the project. So if I take a step back, we have an apprentice, Catherine, who's been working with us for a few years now. She came to us really with a desire to stay living in Ness, who wouldn't, and wanting to be able to work in the area and live in the area. So an apprenticeship position was created. She showed great interest and talent and potential, and would be a real asset to the organisation. And she went on to complete an apprenticeship in community development, first apprentice for our organisation and first apprenticeship of that kind for the Western Isles. That gave her a really good grounding in understanding the organisation and understanding the area that we serve. And she's developed a passion in renewables and climate change. So after completing that apprenticeship, she's gone on to become our trainee project manager while completing a renewables qualification with UHI. So she's really been at the forefront of our climate-related work. She was funded to be trained in greenhouse gas auditing by Climate Hebridean, and was able to engage in that process and understand the findings, which then went on to our climate action plan. So through her work not only internally in our organisation, but engaging with other networks as well. She's a member of the Youth Flag. She's able to gain information from a lot of different areas and feed that in and pull on partnerships to build these projects. So her latest piece of work has been on the delivery of the Climate Action Plan. And as I said in the video, the EV Roadshow was just the first step, and currently working on getting information from all the partners that can support in home energy, and creating leaflets on that are going out to all households in the Galson State Trust area in the next few weeks, to make sure that people are informed and are taking all the help that's available already at the moment. So it's been great to offer employment to a person who wants to remain in the area. So retaining our young population is most definitely one of our aims, and that ties in directly to that. But also building on her passion and energy for the sector, and improving our work as an organisation through her knowledge and understanding there too.
Well, that's terrific. Thank you. Any more questions? We've got two. Okay, so either one, whichever you reach first, I think.
Hello, just a general question for everyone. Do you think we have the right support in the islands for everything you need to be a more sustainable business? And if not, what support would you actually want? And include knowledge in that as well.
I'll kick off since I've got the mic. If you'd asked me that question a couple of years ago, I would have said no. I think we were in a position where we didn't have access to a lot of knowledge. But I think the establishment of the Climate Hub and the different networks and people coming to freely share that information. If I'm seeing you correctly, I think you were maybe at the last Climate Hub meeting and shared some of your own insights from your past employment. So having access to that information is great, and goes a long way. But I suppose that's just for those of us that are sitting around that table at that time, and how do we share that information more widely? But there are fantastic people in our islands that have a lot of information and knowledge, and it's how do we share that effectively? Because what we've done so far, I think, has been really effective.
Yeah, I think I mentioned in the film in regards to the solar panels, we don't currently have the capacity to install that on our roof at the moment ourselves. However, you know, if there was some kind of mechanism in regards to loans, not just for solar panels, but for perhaps a small business would want to get an electric vehicle for deliveries and things like that, a mechanism to get an upfront help with the cost of that, or cover the cost, and then a way to pay that back. I think a lot of funding routes at the moment are for bigger businesses with larger projects, and as the islands is very much about small business, lots of us have small businesses here, that maybe funding streams could be more mindful of that, and maybe help more small businesses rather than medium-sized or bigger businesses with huge projects, and think of small projects to help us decarbonise on that basis.
Yeah, I think, like Jemma said, having the Climate Hub has been really, really good for being able to share information between folk who otherwise you wouldn't have known about, you wouldn't have met, throughout the whole of the islands, who are all looking at the same goals and aims, has been really good.
I'm going to pick up on that very point before we get Angus's question coming in. I mean, I wonder, is it possible, Sarah, that you're able to start having conversations with some of the thrift shops, you know, in Uist, they're literally called the thrift shop there, and in Barra, and maybe start having a bigger conversation about how maybe, if somebody donates something at one of those shops, but it needs repairing, maybe it can come up to you to be fixed or something. I don't know. You have a think.
Yeah, eventually I want to be trying to work with as many people as who want to work with me as possible. At the moment, we're getting waste from quite a few charity shops on Lewis, and again, just diverting that from landfill. I'm in touch with Whitington down in US. They were actually supposed to come up and have a visit a few weeks ago to see what it is that I'm doing in the shop. Unfortunately, weather and ferries. So yeah, I'm in conversation with folk from down there. So just looking at trying to expand and get other folk thinking about doing the same kind of thing.
I think that's an important point. It's in part potentially your own expansion, but also that duplication and replication potential. And clearly the member you mentioned, Otter, they're a member of the hub as well, and so we can have that sort of collaboration. Angus, I think you wanted to ask a question, and please keep them coming. So if others in the room have a question, start getting it ready to ask now.
Hi there, yeah, it's a question from Saruka for Sarah. Saruka's with the UCVO, that's the US Council of Voluntary Organisations. So she said, Sarah, you had to persevere a lot over the years. What sort of obstacles have you had to overcome?
Finding property in around town was the main one. I initially was looking at waste from kind of beach cleans. Couldn't find property. That's not the kind of thing I want to be bringing into my house. So that's how it kind of diverted into plastic from toys. When you're trying to do something from the house, insurance won't look at you, funders won't look at you, and you've not got that step to be able to start. I'd applied for a few different rental properties and was unsuccessful. Private properties were really, really expensive. And then, as I said in the video, luckily I managed to get the property on Quay Street last November, which has just gone to show that by getting that, I've now been able to access funding for the shredding machine from the Landfill Trust and funding for a part-time post from the Crown Estate. So yeah, that was the major stumbling block, was trying to find property for a small business to start up in
Thank you. Do we have what's the next question? Oh, we've got two now waiting.
Hello, my question's for Jemma, and you've already kind of touched on this around youth participation and having that traineeship and links to employability. But I was just wondering if you could expand a little bit more in your strategy and some of the things you do to ensure that young people are included, and towards that goal, like you said, it's the sustainability for the next generation and how young people are involved in that process.
Yeah, exactly that. We are the current stewards of the land to hand over to that next generation, so they need to be involved in what they're going to be managing in the future. Certainly having young people working in our organisation has been fantastic in tapping into their thoughts. They can speak to their friends more who it maybe wouldn't have been a topic that they were interested in. So that is fantastic, and we exploit that as much as possible. It is sometimes difficult to engage younger people to come into community consultations and community meetings. It's maybe not where they want to be, but we do run a number of youth initiatives. So we have Shuit, which is our primary 7 transition programme. So we run that with our neighbouring estates in Carloway and Barvis for all the young people of the West Side. So we take those primary 7 pupils for 3 days of fun-packed activities, but there's also teachings underlining that in land management and sustainability, and for them to understand that they are growing up in community-owned land. Children, a lot of the community buyouts have happened out with their lifetime, so it's the norm for them to grow up in community-owned land, and they don't maybe understand the uniqueness of it when you look at wider Scotland, and what that means for them in the ownership that they have in their own communities. So trying to build those teachings into the sessions that we are having with young people so that they do understand that, and understand that the responsibility that they have for the areas that they're growing up in too. But the more employment that we can offer young people, the more that we can engage in that way, that seems to be truly effective. But any young people that would like to come and speak to us, give us their views, we would be more than delighted to have a chat with them.
Well, the offer is there, if any of you are involved with young people who live in the Galson estate area. I think there's a gentleman towards the rear there, if you pass the mic backwards. And then there's another question.
There's a question here as well.
Sorry, I missed that one. Okay, yeah, but he put his hand up some time ago.
Oh, okay.
And the last time when the other lady put his hand up. So please, you go first, and then you've got one coming up. Okay.
Thank you. Question for Jemma. You touched on a few barriers to EV entry. Would you like to expand on those? Like, what is the largest barrier? Do you know any ways to overcome those? Do you have any support available to you that is coming, or you're waiting to come?
Yeah, if you look at a map for our area, we do have quite a number of EV chargers, which you think, great, we can make this work. In practicality, we found that when they break, it's really difficult to get support to get them fixed. The knowledge isn't there on the ground for someone to come out and have a look at it for you. So you're relying a lot on telephone conversations with people based on the mainland to explain, and they're trying to guide you through how to fix it. So that has been a real challenge in making sure that they are working and functional. And newer EVs seem to be great with the range capacity that they have and the number of miles that they can do. But if you have people with an older model that just don't have the same range, they're much more reliant on having access to charging points at regular intervals and having to plan trips. If someone's also travelling the length of the Western Isles, trying to plan in your ferry times, but also making sure you're getting to an EV charging point at the right time has been a challenge for some people that we've been working with. So that it's that associated infrastructure and the reliability of that, and having people that can help you when it goes wrong has been our main challenge.
I'm grateful for the question, and I hope you'll be able to attend the EV summit that Climate Hebrides / the Outer Hebrides Climate Hub are organising for either the 4th or the 5th of November, and I'll be talking about that in my closing remarks later today. We're acutely conscious that the infrastructure, part of the issue with the infrastructure is it's a national contract, and it's reliant upon contractors coming over on a boat to fix the kit. And we need more local trained installers and maintainers. And in fact, I know that, Melinda, you're interested in getting an electric vehicle charge point for your business. Part of the EV summit, I shouldn't really give the game away now, I will be talking about it later, but we've identified the possibility of a private company that can install equipment, but you then can get a local Sparky to fix, and you don't have to wait for somebody to come over on a boat. And that could work for the Galson estate offices, or Boshan, or Hebridean Charcuterie. There were questions on this side of the room.
Hi, this is a question for Sarah. I was really intrigued by that shredder you had, and I was just wondering, how does it work? Do you have to identify different types of plastic, get them shredded? What happens to it once it's been shredded?
So I got funding through the Ideas into Action Fund for not the big shredder, but the wee small Plastil machine that you saw in the video. The Plastil machine is the one that identifies the type of plastic for me. So I've got quite a backlog of stuff to get through since having been open since last November. And this is going to make it so much easier to get through. So I have to identify every type and then shred it by type, because plastic has different melting temperatures. So everything needs to be done in the same type, and then the machine cleaned out before you put through the next one, so there's no contamination. The shredder machine I got from funding from the Community Landfill Trust. It is powered just by your standard 240 volt. You can get 3-phase ones, but there's no 3-phase power in the workshop I'm in at the moment. It'll shred up to 80 kilograms of plastic in an hour. You have to keep feeding, as you saw in the advert, you have to keep feeding it into it, but it does a lot. And there's a big set of words have failed me. Like a big cog in the middle of it, and with big sharp points on it, and that turns really slowly, so that constantly breaks the plastic down into smaller and smaller pieces until it's fine enough to go through the grate at the bottom, so you get a consistent size of plastic shred. I could sell that if I wanted to. I can sell it direct to other recycling companies. Other small businesses are using it, but eventually I want to be making furniture out of it. So I'm looking at getting an extrusion machine and a sheet press and other equipment, so that I can melt it down and turn it into something that's usable and not disposable.
Thank you. That was a terrific question. And I'm glad you asked her, what do you do with it? Because that's the bit that always challenges me. And it's interesting, at one of our Climate Hub meetings, one of our members, Richard, proposed potentially using it to create fence posts for making polycrubs, or posts that help hold polycrubs together. Because at the moment he's buying recycled ones from Belgium, and so there is a potential there. I think there was another question. Okay.
Hi, again, about EVs. I have an EV. It's 2 years old, it's a Motability, and I haven't been able to get it in for a service. The closest place is Inverness, which obviously is a 12-hour round trip. I've had lots of bother with Motability trying to get it sorted. Is that something that anybody's doing anything about, to see about how we get them on to the mainland to get them serviced?
I'm sorry, I missed the very last couple of words that you said.
Is there anything that anybody's looking into in a way to get EVs onto the mainland to get them serviced to keep up their warranty?
There are companies that will, in the islands, that will service your vehicles here that may or may not count depending on...
Yeah,
I think, this is a very niche issue, and I'll come and have a conversation with you over the coffee break, if I may. But the principle of having a car serviced, having to be done on the mainland, is not lost on many people in the room. Not just electric vehicles, any lease car. And it's one of the flip sides of living in an island community, that we don't have all the facilities that are on the mainland. But in terms of servicing and fixing electric vehicles, a number of local garages are now competent to do it, depending on the brand. And they've been trained, and they have the capability of being able to deliver that. Do we have any final questions? Oh, yes?
Hello. I am the lassie with the plastics.
Please, can you hold the microphone?
Sorry, yes, sorry. For the plastic recycling, I think it's a fabulous idea. Wondered about it myself with other people, etc. What worries me is for the forever toxic chemicals that are contained within plastics. And what worries me with that is as plastics get older, are they still passing on the toxic chemicals? They're forever chemicals. They're in all plastics. And they get into our environment. And European research shows that there's very high worrying levels in children, all people, from the plastics that are in our environment. And I get a feeling of concern when you talk about shredding and how much of that is actually in your own environment when you do these things. I mean, again, I think it's fabulous that people like yourself are working on this, because if we never had to produce any of these plastics, we'd be in a far better place. But there is the worry of the toxic forever chemicals that are in nanoplastics and microplastics. And they are in all our environments. And the European research shows that in families that have been studied in Germany, but across Europe, it was the teenagers that had the highest dose of nanoplastics, microplastic toxins in their bodies. But it starts, it's everywhere. So I'd just be interested, to see.
Yeah, no, that's a valid point. I'm dealing with a plastic that already exists. If this plastic didn't exist, we wouldn't have this problem or this issue. If we're sending it to landfill, it's creating microplastics going into the environment anyway. If we are incinerating it, it's creating toxic fumes into the environment. There probably is no safe way of dealing with plastic because plastic is a toxic material. But for me, this is the best way of dealing with an issue that we already have. I'm not producing more new materials. I'm reusing the materials that are already here to try and deal with that issue. In the workshop, we use all the proper PPE. So I have ear defenders and goggles and face masks, and we have proper extrusion and doing the best that we can do to prevent these problems. But these problems are already here. So just trying to deal with it in a better way for people on the planet.
I see that and I understand it.
Thank you for your question. That's appreciated. And okay, we've got literally with the closing seconds. If you've got 15 seconds each, give us one important message that you want people to go away to think about over the rest of the day.
Please come shop at Boshan. It's at 88B Keith Street, Stornoway. We're open at 11 till 5, closed on a Wednesday and a Sunday. Thank you.
I would second that. Definitely go shop at Boshan. I think it's great. I think when making decisions, think about our young people. What's going to set them up for the best future, and make sure that we are handing over our islands to them in the best possible way.
Please buy Hebridean Charcuterie. You'll taste some of it at lunchtime today, so I hope you enjoy it. But we are a food business that is buying meats from the local community in a sustainable way. We're helping with the land management for deer and geese. So, we're trying to do our bit in regards to helping our local community sort of manage the land, have food that's produced here sustainably, hopefully enjoyed by you all. And so enjoy our meats today at lunchtime.
Thank you. Well, before we get to lunchtime, we've got a break now and you'll have some pastries and things which have been produced by the catering students at UHI Northwestern Hebrides Stornoway catering department. So fly, my beauties, fly. Off you go. Go and grab yourself a coffee, a tea or whatever, and grab yourself a pastry. Be back in here for 11:20. We'll be starting with the wonderful Frank Rennie, who will be chairing the next session. Thank you, everybody. Well done.